Welcome to the 2021 NFL Draft Day 1 Review Show. I'm Matthew Turner, here with Raw the Lions UK podcast, joined by my co-host, Anthony Fitzpatrick. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, surprisingly, considering the draft went on incredibly late. I think, what were we, 5:15 in the end? So I had 5 hours sleep, but I'm ready. I bounced back for this one. I'll have a nap later, ready for night 2.
Night 2 is coming quickly, but what a day 1. It didn't have some of the really high drama that you might expect of blockbuster trades and that sort of thing, but there were plenty of picks in there that I don't think we were expecting.
Our mock drafts got blown to absolute kingdom come, didn't they? I don't think one of us had a really good night. I'd be interested to see what the scores are later when Ryan tots up what we did, but I don't think the scores are going to be high, to be fair. But I mean, the first thing that really jumped out to me was the lack of trades. There were all the talk about 6 to 10 wanting to trade, lots of people wanting to trade out the back of the first round, and yet we ended up with just 3. It's like last year. A lot of people saying they want to trade, but very little actually happening.
All smoke and mirrors. If you want to go back and watch that show, it's available for playback on Twitch and YouTube. The guests we had on the day 1 stream were Roger Goodgroves, who's Director of Operations at the British American Football Referees Association. He was a terrific interview, really enjoyed that. We had Andrew from @Brit_Breaks. He's a Bengals fan, very engaging. Paul Brown, he's a Browns super fan, got his own daily podcast for the Browns. Tom from Denver Broncos UK fan group, and Matt from the Red, White and Buffalo Blues, as well as Roberto, who's probably the Detroit Lions' biggest fan in Spain, and that was a really good interview. Today, over the next hour, we've got Tom Savage, who's a Chargers fan, and then Andy from Dolphin UK podcast. So really looking forward to that. Sorry, Ant.
No, I was just about to say I really enjoyed some of the interviews last night. I appreciate Roger who came on. He gave me a bit of a schooling when I said, did the referees need to be officiated a little bit better over there? But, I mean, he raised some very valid points, and I suppose you kind of look at it in a bit of a different light. So I consider myself educated now, and I will be a little bit more lenient to refs in the future. But, I mean, come on, we have had some bad ones over the years, and I think that inherent bias is a little bit justified for that, but yeah, I do appreciate him for that.
Yeah, it was funny to watch. I enjoyed that. Right, so over the next hour, we're going to take a quick look at round 1 as well as discuss it with our guests. We're going to kind of hold off on talking about the Chargers and Dolphins too much because of the guests we've got coming on. So, man, if we take the top 8 picks, that's Lawrence, Wilson, Lance, Pitts, Chase, Waddle, Sewell, and Horn. What stands out for you?
Well, I said to you that I could see Jaycee Horn going cornerback 1, and he did. I think it was a little surprising still, but I'm really surprised Carolina didn't pull the trigger on Rashawn Slater. I thought they were going to get a tackle in to protect Sam Darnold, but after going entire defense last year, they've gone defense again. That was a surprising one for me out of that top 8. How about you?
Yeah, for me that was the lowest graded pick of the 8, just because I think it's a slight reach and not the best corner on the board for me, but I do think it fills the need, and he's a terrific player, so they're not going to feel that too much. I think that the team that's going to be most happy out of those 8 is Detroit. I think that if you have a look at the value at each position, Chase expected to go 5 or 6, Waddle expected to go 6 to 12, Pitts expected to go 4, Lance could be seen as a reach, may not be. Wilson and Lawrence went as expected, but Sewell is someone who's been a consensus top 5 pick for the last 2 seasons, considering, the opt-out and what have you. He had the highest graded PFF season in college football of all time at tackle in 2019, the all-time greatest season that a tackle's ever had. He was rated the second best pick in the draft for so long, and has only been falling down balls because of the quarterback effect. I know that you're not massive on tackle, but in terms of value and expectation of where you might be picked, that's the greatest difference in favour of the team picking, I think.
Yeah, you're right. And you're right. I do look at this through 2 different lenses. So, I mean, first up, I just want to say welcome to P. Sewell. I mean, any guy who gets drafted by the Lions has my full and undivided support there. And as you said, the value for the pick, I mean, when it came to it, I did sink it a little bit in resignation. I knew exactly what the pick was going to be. He is a really good tackle, and there's no doubt he's going to be a big player in the future, and the Lions can be very happy with it. But in the same breath, I'm never going to apologize for defending players already on the roster who I believe, have earned their chance here. And if you're going to look at it, at face value, I mean, Crosby was one of the few guys last year who earned an opportunity to get that place. He played really well. He improved a lot, and he deserves a chance in this team. But with Sewell now, he's not going to get that, and that is a little disappointing for me. That's why I'm not against the player himself. It's the position. He played really well. Crosby did 1.5 pressures a game. That's it. That's hurries, quarterback hits, sacks per game. That's not bad. And it's just wondering where to fall down on the side of it. Like I say, we've got a really good pick, but I can't help but feel that we've done a disservice to one of the few players who earned an opportunity last year. And I'll not say sorry for defending him and sticking by him.
No, nor should you, man. There's no pressure on you to kind of completely change your mind now that a pick's gone against you. And at the end of the day, I'm completely with you in terms of how well Crosby did. He showed terrific improvement, proved that he can do it. I do not think he'll be a top half tackle in this league. I think he's probably going to hang around the sort of average starter position as his ceiling, but average starter is absolutely fine. Like that's all you need if you can invest in different positions, and I think you could do that. I've said in our WhatsApp chat that you always need 3 tackles, and so he is the right tackle if either Sewell or Decker go down, because Sewell will obviously flip over if Decker goes down. So you do need a good swing tackle, and it leaves Detroit in a fantastic O-line position.
It does. I just hope they give him an opportunity this year and don't just completely forget about him. I mean, he beat out Vaitai last year. He's proven that he can step up and do it. But yeah, in terms of the value we got, it is a really good pick, and Sewell's going to be really good. He's probably going to take some time to adjust because he's not played right tackle before. But yeah, the offensive line is really good. If we can sort out that guard position, then we're in a really good place there. So it's one of those things you can't impress. Someone's going to be disappointed in the draft. This is just my own personal preference on this. It ain't a dig at the team. So
that's fair enough. I see you. The other, I guess, point of contention in this draft, where the draft really started, was San Francisco at 3. Trey Lance out of NDSU. What do you think?
I'm interested to see what changed. I mean, it was Shanahan who apparently has the deciding vote on what happens there, and he was the only guy in that room who wanted Jones. So I'm wondering whether there's been a lot of peer pressure there telling him to go for Lance instead. I think it makes sense for them if they're not going to trade Jimmy G away. He needs to sit for a while. He needs to sit for at least a year, Trey Lance does. So it makes sense if they're just going to sit and develop him and then use him as Jimmy's natural replacement. But it's going to be a baptism of fire for him because he's just been drafted to the best league in football. You've got guys in there like Aaron Donald and his, group at the Rams. You've got JJ Watt now with the Cardinals. You're going to have a lot of guys coming after you very quickly and putting you under pressure. And Lance, in his pressure grades, isn't so good. And the step up in opposition is just going to be, it's already big enough going to the NFL, but going to the toughest league in it, it's going to be on a mighty step up. So I'm interested to see how he does. But I think as far as San Francisco goes, it was definitely the right pick. If Lance hits, his ceiling is so high, he's a dual threat guy. That's the way the leagues are going, to dual threat guys. So they made the right choice in the end, I think.
Yeah, I think the San Francisco fans should be very happy with this pick. I haven't graded it the highest because of their year one impact and the fact that their roster is kind of win now. In terms of making that roster competitive over a long period of time, they've slightly mortgaged their future for this, and he provides the highest upside. But also, I think what goes underrated is the amount of work he puts in off the field and how smart he is. I know he hasn't played many college snaps, but being able to call your own protections at quarterback at FCS level. I mean, it's something that you don't really see in the college game, even from some of the best. So I think that he's got the ability to put the homework in, and he just needs experience in the middle. But I think we're going to see him start earlier than people expect. I think that by week 10, that he could well be starting.
I think if they're at 5-5, I reckon you're right. If they're a bit higher than that, if they're 6-4, 7-3, I might not expect to see him maybe till the 17th game if he's, there's nothing on the line there. But if they're 5-5 or worse, I could expect him. But I mean, look at that division, man. If Trey Lance hits his potential, you've got Kyler Murray, you've got Matthew Stafford, you're going to have a really high ceiling Trey Lance, and you've got Russell Wilson. And you saw last year, the Seahawks-Cardinals game, the first one, was one of the best games I've ever watched in my life, because it's two elite quarterbacks just going at it, and now there's 4 guys potentially in there who are just elite, and you're going to get some ding-dong battles down there going, over the years. So it's very exciting as far as the division goes. So I'm really interested to see how it plays out.
Let's move on to 9 to 16, and then we'll welcome in our first guests, hopefully. So, Surtain to Denver at 9, Smith to Philly at 10, Fields to Chicago at 11, Parsons to Dallas at 12, Slater to Chargers at 13, Vera Tucker to the Jets at 14, Mac Jones at 15 to New England, and Collins to Arizona at 16. What are you seeing out of this group?
I'm seeing 2 teams who've got incredibly lucky with their quarterbacks. I mean, Chicago, my heart sank when they traded up. I knew exactly who it was for. We all called it on the pod the second the trade was made, and it's just, I love Justin Fields. He's going to be a hell of a good quarterback, a dual threat guy, and now we're going to have to deal with him in the NFC North. I don't like that one bit, and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with Dalton now, because they've promised him the starting job, apparently, but I think Fields is a day one starter. Or I think at least if he's not, you put him in straight away anyhow to give him game management experience. And, they've got Foles there as well. So what the hell are they going to do with him? They're going to need to try and get him off the books, because they can't keep all 3 of them, not at the money that they're paying them. But that's a home run hit for the Bears. It hurts me to say. So, yeah, I'm not looking forward to seeing Fields in the division for the next decade. He's going to be a hell of a pain to deal with. And then New England, they got their guy and they didn't even have to move. All this talk about going to 4, going to 7, giving up loads of draft capital, and Mac Jones just falls right to them. Now, we said, which direction were New England going to go with their picks? Fields and Jones were there for them. Are they going to go with the dual threat guy and continue the Cam Newton experiment, or are they going to go back to basics and go back to the pocket passer and go back to like it was under Tom Brady with Mac Jones? And we said with Mac Jones, schematically, the Steelers and the Patriots were the 2 places for him to go where they still, will provide good protection for him and lean towards his advantages. And the Patriots, he just fell to them. They're going to be absolutely delighted with that. I think 2 teams got really lucky with their quarterbacks. On the flip side, I'll let you go on about the.
Well, so do you think that Mac Jones is day one starter in New England, or do you think Cam retains it for now?
Day one starter. Simply because I think you don't want to increase the gap between. They're still schematically set up for a pocket passer, I reckon. And I think you just need to put him in right away. Because you don't want to give Cam another. What's the point of having Cam and trying to use his designed runs and all that? Because Mac Jones isn't going to do designed runs. He ain't going to really run much out of the pocket. So there's just no point in putting Cam there anymore. Just put Jones in, get your scheme back to how you want it to be. If he has a little bit of a baptism of fire to start, then fine. But this time next year, if he's played a full season, he could potentially, be at a really good level already if they've got the system sorted for him and he's comfortable with it.
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, probably the poorest pick is Devonta Smith at 10 for Philly. Just, but it's not any indictment on Devonta Smith. I just don't think he was worth trading up 2 spots for. They were obviously spooked by the Giants being 11, and I know that you weren't high on the Giants taking a receiver, but it seemed like every Tom, Dick, and Harry was mocking a receiver to the Giants, despite the lack of need there. So I think they got spooked and traded up. They didn't trade up too much away for it, but I think anything was too much. Philly had other obvious needs. I think that potentially that Fields would have been a better pick if they were going to trade up and give up some capital, because I don't know about you, it feels like throwing Hurts under the bus a bit, but for me, he hasn't shown that he's going to be the answer there.
Yeah, I shouted it as soon as they traded. I shouted they're going for Fields, aren't they? They're going to upgrade on Hurts. But I'm with you. I think they got spooked. I don't think they gave up a third. I think just to move those two spots, and I don't think they needed to. They've got a lot of holes on that roster, a lot, and they've just given away a pick. That's one less pick for them to fill another hole in now. And Smith is a good receiver, but he's going into a battered receiving line full of injured players and no real standout guy. So he's going to be going in there and he's going to be getting hit a lot. It's not like these guys are going to be able to take the attention off him. I feel that was a mistake by them, and I'm still in the camp that the Giants were going to go linebacker. I know that we talked earlier, and they eventually, we'll talk about it later, ended up going receiver, but I feel like Philly could have stayed solid with that because, again, were the Giants expecting Parsons to fall? Maybe they might have gone Parsons.
Yeah, they might have done. You're right. How do you feel on the Jets trading up from 23 to 14 with Minnesota and taking Elijah Vera-Tucker?
Oh, I didn't see it coming. I didn't see that one coming. I thought when they initially came up, who was it? I thought they were going after Jets. I thought they were going corner. I thought they'd come up for Farley. But, I mean, if you're going to get in a new quarterback, I guess you've got to protect him. So, I don't know with Vera-Tucker. He's going to be a guard, I think, more than a tackle. I think if you're coming up for a purebred tackle, it's good to come this far for one, but that's a pick that remains to be seen. It could be really good, but I've got my doubts about that. I don't know about you. Do you feel the same on that one, or I'm a little iffy?
I think that at first glance it looks expensive. I think the trade was 23, a high third, a low third, and getting back a low fourth comp pick in return. So effectively, they lost 2 third-round picks for it. And that seems expensive, but for me, Vera-Tucker falls out of the tackle class because of his physical attributes, but he's one of the best O-linemen on the board. If not, I think at 14, he's the best O-lineman on the board by far, because his ability to move side to side allows him to play that guard spot just as efficiently. Guards aren't as valuable, but he can play tackle in a pinch if you have to. But he's instantly going to be one of the better guards in the NFL. And I think that that's valuable. And if you're taking Zach Wilson, I think it is important to protect him. If you go quarterback in round 1 and you have another pick, go O-line or go receiver. But protect him or give him something to throw at. And I think that they've done really well there. So I think it's a sneaky good pick. I think other people will say it's not, but I'm quite happy with it.
Well, I mean, you look at the left-hand side of that line now, and it is Mekhi Becton and Vera-Tucker, so that is a good side to that line. I think, Zach Wilson's going to get a lot of protection from there. So, I mean, it could work out very well for them, but was it a bit too much? I'm not sure. I just feel like maybe the price was a tiny bit high because, as you saw, there was a lot of tackles and that who fell. They could have made O-line adjustments as well at where they were. Maybe got some good value there without giving up the thirds, but they made a bold move, and that left-hand side of the line now is really strong.
Yeah.
So, and they need it in that division.
Steve's watching from work, and he actually had a message a little bit earlier on that kind of pertains to what you're saying about the tackle class there. He said, it looks like there was a groupthink on the strong tackle class, and everyone did the same. They took another player because they thought they could deal with tackle later. Do you think the wealth of opportunity at tackle in the whole class means that almost everyone fell?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think that's definitely got something to do with it. I mean, I know I opened up last night saying there was 6 classes really in this first round. You were looking at with a lot of talent in there. That includes the cornerbacks, the edges, the offensive tackles, and I think in the Edges case, they all slipped a little bit as well, because I think, again, people were thinking along those lines. I mean, 4 of the last 5 picks in the first round were Edges, and I think they slipped as a result of the bounty available, and I think some teams maybe went for other positions a little earlier. I do agree that that was a factor there. I mean, the corners, where did they go? I think the corners, they sort of worked out how we thought, maybe a few positions too high for some of them. But yeah, I agree. I think the tackles did fall because of the depth of the class, and there's some really good tackles available. I mean, how Tevin Jenkins has fallen to round 2, someone is going to get themselves a big steal there. I think if Jacksonville get him, then they've just had a home run first round and start to the second.
Yeah, I completely agree. I can't believe that Tevin Jenkins is still on the board. And actually, if we move on to the second half of this board, the very first pick is someone who bucked the trend in terms of tackles falling, and that's horrific. But let me just run down the next 8. So we've got Alex Leatherwood with Vegas, Jalen Phillips to Miami, Jamin Davis to Washington, Tony to the Giants, Pay to Indy, Farley to Tennessee, Darasaur to Minnesota, and Harris to Pittsburgh. And Leatherwood's the one that stands out to me there. All the tackles fell. Darasaur fell 9 spots from his consensus pick. Slater was meant to be a top 10 pick. Saul was meant to be a top 5 pick. All fell significantly. Tevin Jenkins fell out the first round, despite the fact that everyone thought he was going to Indy at 21. But Leatherwood was vaunted to go in the 50s, at least. And yet he's picked by Vegas at 17.
Yeah, I don't get this at all. I mean, I had him in my first round mock at 31, but that's only because I'd gone tackle heavy in the first round, and I thought teams might start panicking and trying to move up, or trying to just get any tackle they could get their hands on. But I mean, for him to go, or say third, I guess, yeah, Vera Tucker's not going as a tackle, so yeah, he's gone as third tackle. That's a huge reach for me, a really big reach, and it's really surprising for Vegas, because they had a lot of talent on the board there. They had Owusu Koromoa. They've got a big need at linebacker, just sat there waiting for them, and they've gone for, yeah, like you say, not even a first round tackle when you've got you've got Darasaur there, you've got Jenkins there, you've got far better players, and it's just Vegas been Vegas. Well, it's the Raiders doing Raider things. I think it's you don't know what goes through the mind of John Gruden there.
No. I mean, from my point of view, I rate him higher than Darasaur in terms of how I think they'll translate to the NFL. I know Darasaur was meant to go much higher, but you know my feelings on him, and I don't think he's going to do much. But I would have taken Tevin Jenkins for sure. For sure. I think the thing about Leatherwood that's underrated, and is probably the reason why Vegas went this way, is they feel like the culture fit is just as important as anything else. And I think it was said on stream, actually. I can't remember who said it. I think it might have been Ashley in the chat said that they go after safe bet 4-year big 5 starters. And that's exactly what they did. Leatherwood is meant to be an absolutely top bloke, and he was consistent at Alabama without being flashy. He went out there and he did his job well on the best O-line in college football by far. So I can see it. I can see the logic. It's just sometimes you have to take the difference between where you think someone should go and where the consensus is, and go, if the difference between those two things is too high, can we pick someone else and then trade back up, or can we trade down to make it better value and pick something up later? And Vegas seemed to be unable to reconcile that difference.
Yeah. Like you say, are they looking at his potential? Quite possibly, but I think you've just got guys there who are ready to go and still have high ceilings. You know, Cosme's there, Jenkins is there. It's just odd. You can't get in the mind of John Gruden. I mean, when he took Ferrell at 4, it was just...
Yeah, Clelin Ferrell was a shocker. and they have this knack of just picking players and reaching hard. Looks like we've lost Ant for the moment, so I'm gonna carry on with this. But looking at the rest of that second half, there's a few reaches in there that I saw. Jamin Davis, for one, has risen up boards meteorically, and when he came into the draft, he was 21 on the Draft Network's board. But if you went back 2 months, he was in the mid to late 60s, and they haven't played any more games since then. People have seen more tape. He's had his pro day, and he tested excellently. Like, he was fantastic. He's one of the most athletic linebackers in history, or at least since the RAS testing began. And he's got good instincts too, but he's inconsistent. And I do think that was a bit of a reach, but I'm quietly pleased with that pick for Washington. It makes that front seven very, very scary. So, Jamin Davis is a good pick with a slight reach. Tony, as well, is someone who we were talking about off there before we came on for the Giants that seems like a massive reach to me. The Giants probably went into the draft thinking they were getting receiver or they were getting elite linebacker, and they came out with a one next year. But in Daniel Jones's must-do better year, they've given him a weapon which is perhaps not as strong as they would have hoped at the beginning of the night.
Apologies about that.
That's all right, man. Don't worry. Darius, Tony, thoughts?
It's interesting. Now, this obviously feeds into the narrative that you were saying about the Eagles panicking that the Giants were going to get Smith. Obviously, Tony's quite similar in stature to Smith, but I mean, it is an odd one. I mean, I think Tony's one of the best potential slot receivers in this class. He's really quick. He can make guys in the secondary miss with ease. He's got that much speed, but he's got a lot of bits that need refining to his game as well. And if you're picking at 20, I think you need a little bit more than that sometimes. And I think the Giants had other needs as well. They've just invested big in Golladay. You've got Shepard. You've got Slayton. I mean, it was an odd one for me. I think they just had a lot of options here. I mean, they still could have gone to Usu Koromoa again. They could have got a great linebacker and an extra first next year, and suddenly they've had a really good draft. But this is not a safe round one pick. It's a, they've had a guess at this one, I think. But yeah, if he lands, then it's going to be a hell of a pick at 20 because he's incredibly good on his day.
But my problem is how many snaps he's going to play. Is he better than Sterling Shepard day one? Because Sterling Shepard is a slot receiver for the Giants currently, who's just come off a couple of great years. Is he the replacement?
I think, if I'm right, is Shepard not in his last year? We had the Giants go on yesterday, and I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, you're right. He is in his last year
now. So I feel it might be a case where you see him. I think you'll see him in quite quick. He'll rotationally be put into situations because the other thing is Tony can do the jet sweeps and all that in the backfield, the little gadget plays as well as working in the slot. So I think you'll see a lot of him early, and he'll in a rotational role, and he'll probably end up finish the season as a starter. But no, sorry. Before I went out, I did ask. I don't know whether you answered it on air about Phillips being the first edge to go.
No, I didn't hear it. Sorry.
Was that surprising for you that Phillips was the first edge to go? I know we all think he's a great talent, and it's just the injury concerns there. But Pay was the consensus guy to go first, really.
Yeah, I won't say too much about Phillips. Just waiting for our Dolphins fans to come on at 1:45. But just in general, I wasn't surprised that he was the first to go. I think that his injury concerns are overblown. I think there's plenty of people who've had concussion issues before and bounced back from it. If I remember rightly, what I've heard from other podcasters who've heard things from inside the organization was where he was previously to Miami had a hard and fast rule that if you got 3 concussions in your college career, you were mandatorily retired. They forced you to retire. Like, there wasn't any sort of, let's test you and see where you're at. It's 3 is too many, 4 is unacceptable, you're done. So they forced him to retire. It wasn't his choice to retire. He was gone. And then he managed to get his transfer so he could play again. Now, if you look at rugby, there's plenty of players who have suffered many more concussions than that. And, it's not something that you want to advocate doing often. But I don't think it's an indictment on his ability to play. And I don't think it's an indictment on him taking on concussions in the future. I don't think the way he plays means he's necessarily at risk any more than any other player. And if you take out the injury risk, for me, he is a top 5 pick. So Miami have had an absolute steal there. But I'll let Andy talk about that a bit more later.
So, looking at this 8, 17 to 24, who wins out of that? Who's had the bet? Because I look at a lot of these picks and I'm like, Darasaur not high on Farley, injury worries, pay maybe to Indianapolis. I feel like they got a good deal with him. I feel like that's the pick out of those 8 that represents best value. I know you've graded them. I don't know if you agree, but
so I think that Miami has the best pick there just because of what I've said. But if you take him out of it, I think the best pick, as you say, is Pay. I won't say the best. I'll say the least worst. I think almost every pick in that 8 is a reach because of how I rate Darasaur, who obviously is value there considering where he was meant to be picked. But I'm just not picking him in the first round. I don't think he should be. So Pay for me is the one.
I agree. I think there are a lot of reaches in it, and I think there are a lot of reaches. And obviously with Farley, you're just not sure. He could be a reach. He could be a steal. If he ends up being fully healthy and playing to his ability, then at 22, that's an amazing pick. But I mean, I'm glad the Steelers went Harris though, because I think that was the only pick I got right after the top 5.
Yeah, you can see it come. That pick came in after 10 seconds on the clock, so they knew who they were going for, and I think he knew as well.
I think Harris is going to be a monster. I think written in his previews of him, he's built like Derrick Henry, but he's also got like Le'Veon Bell attributes, his patience, waiting for the gaps to break, and then he just bursts through, and then you're in trouble.
Yeah, I really like him.
He's a massive upgrade on Connor for me, and I think the Steelers made the right decision because with all those tackles dropping, I know on stream I did wonder and think, are they gonna go tackle instead now that someone's dropped to them? But I think that was the right call for Pittsburgh in the end. And I do love that pick.
I think they should have gone tackle. I think that although the tackles are falling, I'm not sure one's going to fall to them in the second round that they're going to be happy with. At some point, there's going to be a run on them. Once one comes off, they're all going to go. And I worry that Pittsburgh, assuming I can't remember quite where they're picking, but assuming they're picking 24 down in the second round, so maybe 50, 57, I think 57, 56, that they're going to pick up a tackle who might be good enough. But in some of the people that we've been talking about who've fallen out of the first round, they are good enough, definitely. And I think they're going to miss out on that. Maybe they could go centre. Obviously, haven't had any centres off the board as yet, and we've got a couple that we're in love with, I know. So maybe that's the way to go. I'm not sure, but
I think I think if they go to round 2, you look at guys like Spencer Brown and Dylan Radins. If they're there, then I think the Steelers can still get a good deal out of that with the tackles.
Yeah.
But I think then after that, you are looking at guys who need time to develop. So it'd be interesting.
It is going to be very interesting. Just on pay, for me, I think he was going to go. I thought he was going to go higher. I had him possibly mocked to the Vikings at 14 or Elijah Vera Tucker. Obviously, that didn't work out. I thought we could have gone to several other places beforehand. So it's a good value pick. But I'm not sure that it's a position of massive need for Indy, considering their tackle needs as well.
I'm really surprised they didn't replace Costanzo. He's a massive loss on that line at left tackle, and given who had fallen to them there, I mean, I've been mocking Cosme to them for years, but Tevin Jenkins was there as well. That was really surprising for me, but I think they've looked at the value and gone, we can't pass up on that, especially in the division they're in. You can never have too many edge rushers to help out there. And, if you've got Quitty Pay trying to run stuff. So is it they're in there with the Titans? Are they in with Titans? No.
Indy are in with Titans, yeah.
Yeah, Titans. So I think you want a guy in there, big beefy guys who can.
Are they? Am I going mad?
I don't know. I'm going back. I think that might be the sleep deprivation there.
So, I'm thinking of Houston.
Yeah, so I think that's what I'm doing as well. That's the sleep deprivation knocking in. But
God, yeah, it
back
was a
to
long
Pay.
day
I think Pay is great value. I mean, anyone who's listened to this pod long enough, he was the first guy I was really sold on for Detroit when I realized we might be picking a bit higher. I think he's very explosive. I think when he can get, he can get the better of tackles. He just absolutely wrecks them and gets to the quarterback really quickly. He does need development, but I would have been happy, at 11, 12 taking him. So for him to go to 20, 21, I think Indy just saw the value and went, right, let's go for it. But I can't help feeling they've made a mistake not going left tackle.
Yeah, I was right before. AFC South, Colts, Jags, Titans, Texans. So
it's Titans. Well, they're going to need some good run stuffers in there now because, I mean, that Jags backfield is lit. There's Derrick Henry in there. You're going to need some guys who can stuff the run.
Yeah. I'm not sure he's the best run stuffer, though, Pay. He's an athletic freak, but he's a pure edge. I'm not sure how good his run defense is. But we'll see. Anyway, just quickly before we move on to the final quarter of players, I just totted up quickly the position groups that were picked. And with the late run in edge players, they have the most first rounders. 6 edge players came off the board, 5 quarterbacks, 5 wide receivers, 5 cornerbacks, 4 tackles, 3 linebackers, a tight end and a guard, and 2 running backs. Is there a surprise there that there was that many edge players off the board?
I would have swapped round tackle and edge. I would have thought for sure there'd be more tackles than edges, but as we've said from day one, this edge class has been unpredictable. It's hard to really gauge how good they're at and how high teams are on them. I think it's telling that 4 of the last 5 picks were them. I think not a lot of teams wanted to part with big capital for them, but when getting towards the edge of the first and some of them started falling, I think suddenly teams saw the value just, rise really quickly in them. But I'm surprised it's not tackle because there are a lot of teams who still need tackle who passed up on them. So, yeah, that is a surprise for me.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the final quarter, and then hopefully we'll have Andy on from Dolphin UK in about just under 10 minutes' time. So, final quarter picks 25, Jacksonville's Travis Etienne, or Etienne, I think it is. Greg Newsome, the second to Cleveland at 26. Rashad Bateman to Baltimore at 27. Peyton Turner to the Saints at 28. Eric Stokes at 29 to Green Bay. Gregory Rousseau at 30 to Buffalo. Jason Oweh to Baltimore at 31. And Joe Tryon to Kansas at 32. Another set of picks I think not a lot of people are expecting. Best and worst for you?
Best. I'm not sure I think Bateman to Baltimore. I feel like that's really good because I think they really needed a receiver, and I didn't really expect Bateman to fall that far to 27. I thought for sure he was a top 20 guy. So they've got a really good deal with him. I think Cleveland, Newsome, that's a great fit. I love Greg Newsome as a player, and he's going to a really good defense there. And it just got a whole lot better. So I think schematically, that's a really good pick. I mean, I like Jacksonville's. I know their defense is shocking and that, but in their first 2 first rounders, they've turned 2 of their positional groups elite now. Obviously, Lawrence is elite at quarterback, and now you've got Robinson and Etienne in the backfield. I mean, those guys are going to muller some people. They really are. And I personally, that was one I really liked. I mean, the ones I didn't, I think you look no further than the Saints. That's a real head scratcher. I know it was said that Turner might rise quickly because of the poor defensive end class, but I didn't expect him to go there, especially with Orleans having other needs. I was certain they were going to go corner, and that was a real surprise to me. But the rest after that, I think edge was quite high needs-wise for them, so they're all quite, yeah, I'm fine with them. Tryon, I'm not sure. I feel like Ojolari's better. I feel like he might have done better there, but for me, it's not as bad as the Peyton Turner one, and the Eric Stokes one to Green Bay is iffy as well. I love Eric Stokes, but I don't think he was Green Bay's pick. I don't think he's what they needed personally, but I don't know about you. You may disagree with me on that one.
Since when have they ever picked in round one what they needed versus what they craved and wanted? I'm with you. I think Bateman's the best pick out of that 8. As much as anything, character's a massive one with him. He committed to Minnesota after wanting to be elsewhere, but Minnesota made him the offer. He committed to them, and then the college he actually wanted to go to, and for the life of me, I can't recall who that was now, but they did make him an offer subsequently. And that was the one he wanted, but he said, look, I've made a commitment to someone, and I'm going to stick with it. Even though Minnesota is not as big a college by far, this was one of the Power 5 that made him an offer, but he stuck somewhere because he made a promise. And, you know, some people might say that who cares about that sort of thing, that production on the field matters, but that's the sort of person that people on the field are going to fight for. If you're trying to build a team that's greater than the sum of its parts, that's a big aspect of it for me. And his performance on the field, I think he's one of the most pro-ready receivers out there. He does everything very well. He may not be exceptional in any one thing, but I'm not going to call him a jack of all trades because he's very, very good at everything he does. Yeah, Peyton Turner is definitely the reach. I mean, his consensus board number for me, and I updated this 4 days ago, was 88. So that's 60 spots higher than potentially needed. You could have waited a round, maybe 2, before you had to pick him. I know there are rumours that he might go up to the first, but you only have to look at the fact that 1 pick later, 3 edges went consecutively off the board to think that actually there's probably better value that could have been taken there. And he may well turn out to be a terrific pick. But if you could have got him in the second and you could have got another talent in the first, that's probably better. So, oh my God. And Eric Stokes, it's a pick that's funnier than it is bad. I don't think it's a bad pick, but I think the reaction makes it funny, right? The Green Bay fans are going absolutely mad. You know that Aaron Rodgers is going absolutely mad. And you know that the Packers think that they know better than everyone else again. Now, Eric Stokes is going to make an impact for that Green Bay team. And it's probably going to hurt us as well. But not in a way that a receiver might have done.
Yeah, I do agree. I mean, one of their big needs was a corner opposite Jair Alexander. They've been missing that since they drafted Alexander. But again, you'd have thought they might have had at least a little dabble on the offensive line. They need a right tackle. They need a center unless they're going to go with Elgton Jenkins there, which it looks like they will be now. But I don't know. I love Stokes. I think he's great, but I think he's a developmental guy. And I think he's going to take some time to get into it. And I think with the Packers, 2 seasons in the NFC Championship game in a row, they're going to need people who are going to come in instantly and make a difference. And I don't know if he will in the short term. And I think that'll work against him in terms of their fan base.
Yeah, I mean,
all this stuff
it sounds like Kevin King all over again.
Yeah, it is. But I think Stokes will do a lot better. I think he'll do a hell of a lot better. But I just don't think in the short term, which is what the Packers fans will be looking for.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of gutted he's gone there because he was one of my favourite players in this draft class. And I think
yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I think he'll do well there in due course, but it is funny to see their reaction there to what's going on with Rodgers. So
just my final thoughts on the last 3. All those edge players coming off the board at the end, I think is you're seeing the impact of the 5th year option on the board. So at the end of the day, it's all about money, right? I know the cap is a social construct. You can fiddle with it and mess things about. But at the end of the day, the 5th year option is a cheap way of getting a premium guy for a 5th year. What premium guys, premium positions are in the NFL? You can look at taking quarterbacks in those sort of positions for a cheap 5th year option. The other really expensive guys are offensive tackles and edges. It's no surprise to me you're taking boom or bust candidates at that level. So Tryon, 08, Russo, all guys who I think have exceptionally low floors. I think that they could all very easily bust. Always production is non-existent last year, and with his athletic ability, he should be doing better. Russo, his testing was awful. One of the most productive 2019 seasons, one of the most productive edge seasons of all time in the college game in 2019, but not playing for a year and then not testing well is not a good sign. And Joe Tryon's just a reach. It could be afforded, by Tampa, that they didn't have any glaring needs, so they can afford to reach and just hope that you're gambling on the ceiling.
Well, I get what you mean. I personally like Buffalo and Baltimore's picks. I think they've got good value there if the player works out. But as you say, this could end up graded A star or F, and anywhere in between.
Yeah,
so
it really could.
It could, but I think if Russo lands at 30, then you've got a steal. You've got a huge steal there. It just depends whether he fulfills his development or not.
Yeah,
so we will see.
Right, it's high time to welcome in our guests from Dolphin UK podcast, Andy and Lee. How you doing, boys?
Hi guys, yeah, all right. Just awake slightly. still need to go back to bed in a minute, I think. But yeah, all good.
I know how you're feeling. I'm wiping the sleep out of my eyes. Thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate your time and getting up so early. How did you find all of round one?
Go on, Lee. After you.
Up and down. I think it's the easiest way. Up and down. That's maybe just for me personally. I was pleased with the Dolphins picks, to be quite honest. Especially Waddle. I think we've kind of been talking about it for maybe the best part of 2 months. I thought Waddle was the guy early on, and I think he still would have been the guy had Chase been there. I know during the draft they kept saying that the Dolphins were hoping Pitts or Chase would be there. If that had been the case, you don't move out of the third pick, because you guaranteed at least one of them was gone. So I think that was too much of a risk if they were really locked in on Chase or Pitts. But yeah, over the moon with Waddle just makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, I was kind of banging the table for your guy actually all kind of off season for Saul. I was very hyped. I thought when it kind of came out that he was starting to practice at right tackle that we've got the kind of protection for Tua's blindside sorted. But no, I mean I'm like Lee. I'm happy with Waddle. I think kind of adds a hell of a lot of playmaking ability to that Dolphins offense. But I'm slightly dubious on Phillips, not because of talent, just because of kind of concussions and past injury and stuff like that. It feels like could be a really, really good pick if nothing flares up. But, only one complete season so far. And, at the college level, it's obviously a lot different as well. So it feels like once he takes a couple of hard hits, we'll kind of get the measure of who he's going to be for the Dolphins.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell me a little bit about yourselves and the podcast as well, if you would.
Yeah, sure. So Simon's who's not here with us, kind of got us together as the Dolphin UK sort of membership group, and you can pay membership fee, get involved with that. It's kind of like the first kind of official Dolphins club in the UK. So we're just kind of a side branch of that. Really, we've been going just about a year now. Got a really kind of nice little following both here and in the States, which is great. Just every week like to get together and chat. Lee was far more optimistic than me about the last season. Predicted 10-6. Basically, whatever Lee predicts happens. Like he's had Waddle, he's had us going 10-6. I think you even said you might miss out on the playoffs at 10-6 as well, which just seemed completely crazy. But so just lots of good Dolphins chat, and it's a really weird like community, Dolphins community, isn't it, Lee? It's like either kind of at your throat or like everyone's like really peace and love. So it just depends what day you get them on.
Yeah, everyone's harmonious leading into the draft. We all know what we want. Just waiting for hell to open up when the pick is made, and it wouldn't have mattered who it was. It was always going to be the worst pick ever. So it's always fun to watch the fan meltdown on Twitter.
It's the same in every team. It's unbelievable, isn't it, how one pick splits the fan base so completely. Considering your psychic powers, Lee, how are the Dolphins going to do next year, just so we know?
They'll win 11 games next year.
Ooh.
That's
the
based on
game
that's
is
based
a win.
Yeah, it's just based on the schedule being a little bit harder than last year. I think they make the playoffs this time. I think they're a better team than last year, but I don't think it necessarily results in 3 more wins, 4 more wins. Do you know what I mean? They may even only win 10 games, but I think they will be a better on the field team than they were last year.
So you've obviously picked, as you said, Waddle at 6 and Phillips at 18. Were you convinced at all by the rumours that you might have traded down to pick up more capital than you traded up for from 12?
A little bit at one point. I mean, when Fields got to got out of there, I thought someone would come up and get him. Didn't think he'd slide to 11 for sure. So yeah, I thought we kind of maybe move back even a couple of picks with the Broncos or something like that. I was also fairly convinced that we were going to shift back from 18 to kind of mid-20s. Someone like the Browns come up and get their guy, but obviously no need. It was kind of quite light in general on trades last night, wasn't it? I think you'll kind of see that kick off a bit more today as there's loads of teams got loads of needs, and the guys will, the talent will suddenly crunch down into from the kind of guys that have fallen out of the first round. They'll still be sat there for the first 10 or so picks, but then it will kind of move around. So yeah, I can see us shifting back a bit today. Actually, a lot of people want a running back. I can't see us like sticking around for Javonte Williams if we've not gone in on Harris and Etienne yesterday. So yeah, we'll have to see.
And the Jalen Phillips pick went in really quickly. It was one of the quickest picks made, in those first 20 picks. The Dolphins obviously knew who they wanted. So I think now knowing what we know, I think it's, they weren't really looking to move back. Also, we know from the deals Chris Greer makes, he's going to take a ransom from somebody to move up no matter where it is. He seems to always get his way or not, or doesn't bother. So I don't think anyone was going to be able to offer kind of catch Chris Greer thinking, I'll move back if I can pick up anything extra. I think he would have wanted a premium for it no matter what, even if that's, not seen as the right way to do it. I think, that seems to be the way he operates.
Well, and that way of operating got you one of the best trade downs of the last few years, really. The value you get there, especially when they pick Trey Lance, who is not helping them year one. I mean, he could be one of the best quarterbacks in the league 3 years from now. That's the sort of upside perhaps he has. But year one, in a win now mode, it's not helping them, and you're set up for the future once again. That one trade keeps paying dividends for you.
That's it, and the fact that we've traded our first round pick next year instead of the 49ers pick would suggest that the Dolphins are in full agreement that Lance isn't the guy to bring immediate success there, wouldn't it?
Any questions, Ant?
Yeah, so obviously you're picking, I think, 4th tonight in the second round. Where do you think the Dolphins go next? Is there a personal preference for you, a guy who's dropped out the first, maybe you'd be delighted to get there?
Go on, Lee.
I think it's Koromoa is the guy that we never expected to be getting out the first round. Whether he's still there at pick 4, I think this is really interesting thing where people get wrapped up in the draft in day one, and then when you've got that gap between day 1 and day 2 starting, everyone starts to realize, like, oh, hang on, these guys are still around, and I think you see less players starting to kind of fall almost by accident. I think sometimes, people just get caught up in the whirlwind of day one. But I think that would be a great pick. I mean, people had him mocked to us at 18 for weeks and weeks, and you could see why they were doing it. It's definitely a position where we could do with an upgrade. I mean, even though we're a 10-win team, and I was quite bullish on the team, there's still plenty of places they could upgrade. There's plenty of places to go. I'm not under the impression that this is some sort of Super Bowl ready team. So there's plenty of options.
Yeah, and for me, it may be like a right tackle. So Tevin Jenkins, maybe if he's still around, or someone like Eichenberg and shift him across. I'm convinced that we need more offensive line help. I don't think you can ever have enough. And I watched. What did I watch back earlier? I watched us play the Bengals earlier, and Tua just kind of getting whacked every time he dropped back 3 steps and bang. I was like, okay, this isn't going to be sustainable. So yeah, we definitely need to add some more bodies on that line.
Well, you mentioned linebacker there. Obviously, it'd be a steal to get Owusu Koromoa there, but away from the draft, Kyle Van Noy letting him go. What was your guys' reaction to that? Because that came as a bit of a bit of a shock. He's a leader on there. It seemed a bit of a weird decision to let him go.
Go on, Lee, you're the man there.
I think the Dolphins are really quick to if it's not panning out the way they think it's going to, they're willing to cut bait quickly. They're not going to keep someone on the roster just because they paid them a lot of money. The contract is also structured quite well where there's no big hits going forward. He's not counting a massive amount against the cap next year and the year after. It's the kind of money was all paid, or at least the majority of it. I'm a big fan of the way the Dolphins are willing to admit that they've made mistakes, because there's no GM out there hitting on every free agent, every draft pick. That's just not the case. So you saw it with Jordan Howard, signed him in free agency, cut him during the season. If it's not working, it's not working. Let's do something different. So I'm a big fan of it. With Carl Van Noy, I just get the feeling that there's something that we don't know that was going on, because he seemed like such a perfect fit. It made so much sense in free agency. I know, a lot of people thought we overpaid, but we weren't necessarily a winning team, so you do have to, you are going to pay a bit of a premium. It's the guy you want, so I wasn't upset with what they paid. Just think maybe the fit wasn't quite as good as they thought off the field as it was on the field. And it's not to say that Carl Van Noy's a bad guy, always came across well in the media and stuff like that. I think maybe it just wasn't quite as great a fit. And I think they feel the production they can replace for less money.
Are there any guys further down the draft when you've been kind of doing deeper dives or mock drafts that you kind of find you're consistently mocking to yourselves, that you've kind of fallen in love with a bit? Are there any draft crushes down there?
Oh man, I got a few. I really like Emir Smith-Marset, the wide receiver out of Iowa. Kind of lovely, smooth right runner. I think I don't know whether we'd go. We've got 1 third-round pick. I don't know whether that would be a thing that we did after we took Waddle, to be honest. But I think safety is the position that I really think we need to target in that third round. I think our Darius Washington. Sideline to sideline, really quick, slightly undersized, and yesterday I was saying to Lee, kind of reminds me a bit of Anton Winfield, and kind of have that kind of hard hitting impact with slipping a bit because of his athlete, his size. That's the one after his size. But I think he's one of the best safeties in the class, and I think those safeties are going to start going off the board quite quickly. So if he's still there in the third round, then sign me up. Lee, anyone your side
on the board? They just loved him at the Senior Bowl, and they were very purposeful about making sure they coached at the Senior Bowl. It just seems too good a fit. I don't know if that means it's no guarantee it's going to work out or anything like that. But I'm a big fan of if you've got a guy, get him. I'm not really so concerned about draft value. I don't want to come out of the draft without you getting your guys. Last year. We know the Dolphins were interested in running backs, and each time they were taking a couple of picks before they pick, just move up and take them. Do you know what I mean? Don't come out, because otherwise you've got coaches that get fired and they're like, oh, well, we didn't get our guys and stuff like that. Just get them. And then, if the plan's good, it will work out.
Yeah. If you've made a plan, you didn't get your guys and it didn't work out, well, you didn't make a good enough plan. You should have had a backup plan. It's not an excuse, which works at all.
Yes.
So the Senior Bowl point is really something. So we coached the Senior Bowl the year before, ended up taking John Penasini, who's a nose tackle, in the 6th round. And he came in and was an instant contributor. Now, he's not a flashy player, it's a nose tackle, but he held up well in the run, which is what we needed to do. And people, I think, really underrate the teams that are coaching in the Senior Bowl being able to make these kind of really good value picks lower down there. So I'm looking out for Quinn Miners for you guys too. I think it's a really good pick.
Yeah, and it's also a real position of need. Do you know what I mean? They had him play centre during the Senior Bowl. They moved him across a few different positions. I think they were able to see some versatility, which they liked. I mean, I know it's not a popular comment, and I've made it a few times on our podcast. I don't think the Dolphins were interested at the top end of the draft with players who opted out. Now, if the teams opted out of last season, that's different. But that's why I think would have been the difference between Jamar Chase was on the board. I still think they would have gone Waddle, because they want guys that are all about football. And, that's why the coaches were so pleased to be able to coach at the Senior Bowl. They just want people that are football all the time, and I think you can make some arguments for Jamar Chase. You know, obviously, you can't hold it against anyone for opting out because of COVID. It is dangerous for sure, but also you could say you could see that LSU team wasn't going to be as good. Was that going to hurt his draft stock? So he was better sitting out for a year. You know, and I think for the Dolphins coaching staff higher up the board, they're just going to want. I just think they want players that played last year. Now, further down the board, they're going to take some risks. We've obviously seen that injury history is not necessarily such a big concern. Didn't stop them taking Tua. Didn't stop them taking Jalen Phillips. I think that's less of a concern than some of the other factors.
If I could just ask one more, obviously after the draft last night, how do you guys feel the landscape of your division has changed now? Because obviously you've got Zach Wilson there at the Jets, Mac Jones in at the Patriots. How do you look at them? Do you see any of them as an immediate threat to you, or were you quite glad that the Patriots went with Jones instead of someone like Fields?
And I've literally just hit publish on an article for the full 10 yards for this, but I think it's quite condescending, isn't it, to kind of say that we're really happy with Mac Jones going there, because when you look at like the fact he's an unathletic dude that didn't play a lot for a big program, and then you look at the last dude they had that did that, it's like, you know, it would definitely kind of tempting fate. But I'm very much happier that it's Jones. I think there's a few issues that kind of don't really translate to today's game very well. I think he's going to have a bit of a harder time getting up to speed than some of the other guys. So yeah, I'm happy with that. But also when you kind of consider the fact that Bill's there, obviously, and then you've got Cam Newton probably doesn't really want to be mentoring his successor, but at the same time, what a great guy to kind of learn from in terms of experience and what he's done in the league. So I don't think Patriots fans can be too disappointed. To be honest, the Bills again, I mean, I obviously heard you talking about Greg Rousseau just before we joined you, and it's like you say, boom or bust pick there. But if he kind of plays up to that raw athletic talent, then God, that's going to be painful if we haven't got that right tackle sorted fairly soon. So I like the Bills are the team to beat. I think they potentially got stronger last night, and so it's just going to be a bit of an ongoing kind of how do we get the better of them sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that the Bills are in a position to take boom or bust players because they're a solid team. The foundation is already there. So I think you're able to go out on a limb a little bit more. I think, you know, they're pretty solid across the board. I'm in the opposite camp when it comes to Mac Jones, though, because I think Mac Jones is the absolute perfect fit for New England. I think they want someone who's playing in the system. I don't want to compare him to Tom Brady, but Tom Brady's best trait is his decision-making and playing within the system. You know, execute what's called and know the game plan inside out. And I think that seems to be kind of Mac Jones's wheelhouse. So that does scare me a bit. I do, but to go to Andy's point about being mentored or working with Cam Newton, I'm not a big fan of when teams have two quarterbacks who kind of opposing styles, and I don't necessarily think that's conducive to bringing him along well or helping him on the field, because they see and read the game completely different, because Cam's willing to use his legs more than Mac Jones definitely should do, because let's be honest, he's not particularly athletic. So, you know, I don't know how that translates to helping him on the field other than with the sort of study side of things and sort of reading defenses.
The leadership side.
Are you worried about Wilson and the Jets, or are they just rebuilding and no threat to you at the moment?
For me, I'm worried because obviously it could turn out great. Like he looks like he's got massive upside, but at the same time, when you've got franchises that make bad decisions consistently, until they start proving they can make good decisions, like Robert Saleh looks like he could be a great coach, but so does every rookie head coach before he coaches a game. You know, that's. And until they start making proven good decisions, I'm not necessarily that concerned. And I hope not to eat my words later in the year. But you know, I say, you know, when you've got franchises that make historically bad decisions, then you know you can expect it. And I think we saw the same thing very much as Cincinnati. You know, the common consensus was you need to protect Joe Burrow. Well, of course, no, we're going to take Jamar Chase. So I mean, I can see the argument for it, but if it was me, I'd definitely want to be keeping my quarterback upright.
Yeah, something I actually wanted to ask you guys, and I know we've taken up a bit more of your time than we expected, but talking about rookie head coaches who you don't know how good they are until they've coached their first game, Dan Campbell obviously has had experience coaching, and how did you feel about him while he was there, and do you think that we're onto a good one here?
One Lee, you'll have more experience in that one.
I liked Dan Campbell. I thought the team liked him as well. The players loved him. They loved the atmosphere he brought. I hope that he's learned some lessons moving on from it. I mean, when he was the temporary head coach of the Dolphins, it was obviously because of a firing. So I think it's a tough position for anyone to be put in. You're not really ready for it in the same way. So I think the first couple of games they won, I believe they won in a massive blowout in Tennessee and then a blowout at home to the Texans, and everything seemed rosy. But when things got a little bit rougher, I'm not sure the in-game adjustments and stuff were up to where you'd want them to be. But that's why when he went through the coaching interview process with Miami and didn't get the job, he decided to move on to get that experience. I think I'd like to have seen him be a coordinator somewhere rather than just a tight ends coach. But at the same time, I think if you're a leader, it goes a long way to getting players to buy into what you want to do. So I think he's got. I would be much happier with Dan Campbell than I would with Zach Taylor.
Yeah, that's fair. Thank you so much both for coming on. Is there anything you want to plug or anything before you go? You're on the First and 10 network, is that right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so I mean, we'll give the pod a plug, Dolphin UK_pod. But yeah, thanks for having us on, guys. Really appreciate it, and good luck with the rest of the day. And man, I must say that the Lions are one of my kind of sneaky favorite teams. I must say that I'm a huge Matt Stafford guy, and I know that's not really great for you to hear now, but I did really enjoy kind of watching him for the last 10 years or so. So hopefully you guys kind of get back on the front foot in the next couple of years.
Hope so, man. I hope you're right. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us on.
Cheers, guys.
Appreciate it.
Guys.
Thank you very
Thanks.
much.
Bye.
There they go. Thank you so much to them for coming on. That was really good stuff. Any final thoughts, Sam, before we check out?
No, I think we've just covered about everything for today. I need to go and recover. I've got to dash off to work straight away. I've got a work shift, and then I'm straight back and finishing off my board for later, and then we go again.
We go again. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us for the Round 1 review show. We'll be back at 11:30, I think. 11:30, 11 o'clock, something like that. I can't quite remember now.
11:30.